Be
Is
honest
the
with you, look at,
application in here?
we
I mean,
haven't
I
called
didn't
that
look
house
through it
across
all,
the street
but-
from us, the white one that's been on rent,
Oh,
on,
he,
says
call this meeting to order of the Travelers Rest Planning Commission. Thank you all for being here. We will do a roll call. So we will start at the far right. If you will just recite your name, please.
Tony Rackley, Evan Cantrell,
Michelle Garrison,
Rebecca Cooper.
Diane Maxwell.
Don Watson.
Ben Kolsuski.
Thank you very much. Our next item is to approve the minutes of the May 23rd meeting. We all received those via email. At this time, I would accept a motion to approve those minutes.
always motion to approve.
A second, please.
Second.
I'm going to go ahead and comments we discussed earlier.
I do find a
and-
change that needs to be done on those minutes for the time of the meeting.
Oh, okay.
It was shown at 5:30,
And it's 6 o'clock.
and it probably would have been 6, and then following through, meeting called to order, and then meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
If those could be changed to the
We'll-
notes that were made.
We can make those changes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please signify by the raised hand. Those like sign, thank you very much. D, Planning Commission actions. And so Jay's going to give us some notations on his role and how we're going to move forward with some processes.
Thank you, Rebecca. I was, since this is my first Planning Commission meeting, I was just going to make sure that we all operate off the same page. As you know, I serve as a resource for the commission in making decisions that are in regard to typically subdivisions and zoning applications. And so the way I serve you best is we go through and we review the criteria that applies to the decisions that are made and provide advice or recommendation based off of our findings. We don't serve to be your only resource for information. Obviously, we encourage you to be involved with the zoning code and applicable codes, and as you read through these cases, to take a look at those things, because I would say that I'm not always infallible. We're going to find places where we want to ask and verify that the zoning code is fully applied to these things. Typically, the types of cases we're going to face are one, subdivision requests, and we've had a couple conversations about it. My goal is to decrease liabilities upon the city, to make sure that we're reviewing it according to the zoning code and ordinances. There's a definitive review process to subdivisions where it has to meet each of those codes, meet those standards. They also go through the county standards through the SAC meeting, which is, we were just talking about, is a board that comes together, which includes sewer, includes schools, includes all the utilities, includes Greenville County, and most specifically stormwater. And so when those ladies and gentlemen on there make their comments, they're making comments to the developer to say, these are the things that you have to take care of because they're within their purview. And so our review will be within our purview and our recommendations will be according. The other types we also get are rezone applications, zoning applications, and we'll hear one of those tonight. Zoning applications really don't have a standard that we measure up against. What we're measuring is it the best use for the community? Why is it the best community? For the community? What's happening around it? And we're making a recommendation based on your planning director's recommendation to the council for their consideration, because we're changing an ordinance when we do those things. So there's a lot put on the applicant in that regard to make sure that their request is in the best interest of the city, and for us to weigh that accordingly. And so I just wanted to go through those things as we get started. I also have provided my cell phone number to all of you whenever you have questions before we have meetings. And we have a big agenda tonight, a big agenda packet, but which is atypical. But we only have really 3 cases that we're hearing here tonight. So, Rebecca, thank you for letting me speak.
Any questions or comments for Jay? All right, thank you. We'll move forward with the meeting. Our first item is TR 24-02 RZ. The applicant, Deep River South Development, requests the approval of the final development plan and statement of intent for property located at 129 and 132 East Bowers Road, known as the Villas at North Valley. So we all have that information in our packet. And do we have any presentation tonight, Jay, or?
I was going to walk you through.
Okay.
Obviously, after giving you the spiel about rezones and about subdivisions, we get one right off the bat that's different than most. It's a flexible review district, and so what they've presented and has been approved so far is the zoning of the property with a preliminary development plan. And in that, what they have to come back with us is a statement of intent and a final development plan. The measure of the final development plan and the statement of intent is, in fact, the preliminary development plan, which set the zoning to start with. So if we look through, this is the area in question. We've seen it before. Bowers Road, Coleman Road is the aerial view of the project. This shows up currently as unzoned in the county. It is zoned as FRD. That situation is being rectified. The paperwork to change GIS got dropped between the last planning director and myself, and is being rectified even now. The next page shows the county future land use plan, which was Suburban Edge. And then this shows the Travelers Rest future land use plan. The hatched yellow area up above is called Metro. And so that is a portion that was identified in the future land use map, and this is what this is located within. In other words, when Metro is able to serve that area, the future land use moves accordingly. Next 2 slides show the appropriate posting of the property. The next slide shows the project site. These are 2 pictures of the surrounding area. This is the east of the project, north of the project, south of the project, and project to the west. This is the final development plan that was presented to us. And it was based off the preliminary development plan. If you remember, the major change that was considered and has gone through the process with the council removed units that were located along Coleman Road because of the bunched arrowhead, and have been allocated to one area that will be developed on the property. The next few slides show the statement of intent. This statement of intent measures up to the preliminary development plan and the original statement of intent, and this is binding upon the property as to the product that will be built there and the appearances that will be held as it is developed. Within our report, The criteria for this is the preliminary development plan and consistency with it. Upon our review, the final development plan is consistent with the approved preliminary development plan. Public hearing was advertised in Greenville News on July 11th. Signage was posted on the site by the applicant's representative before July 15th, 2024, based on its finding. Staff recommends approval of this request to approve the final development plan and statement of intent with conditions. The site is subject to all applicable requirements of the City of Travel Terrace zoning ordinance, as well as all other applicable ordinances. All appropriate best management practices must be adhered to during development and construction to avoid negative impacts to wetlands. Any potential impact to the identified bunched arrowhead population on site must be avoided. Impacts such as tree clearing or grading to the hill slope above the identified population must be avoided so as not to disturb the hydrology of the Piedmont seepage wetland. Documented consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services and SCDNR must be approved or provided to the planning director, which has been before the proceeding with any construction activities. Signage will require separate permit.
Here, have any questions?
And so you said that the documentation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and SCDNR has been received in your?
Yes, it was received as part of the package.
And there were no comments from them to any changes or anything?
No, ma'am, they weren't, because
We've
basically,
identified all.
they were identified before, and the changes were made too.
Ms. Bowers, is there anything you'd like to add? Thank you for being here tonight. All right, so we don't have to take any action at this time.
No, there will be action upon this. The recommendation is for approval with the conditions, but I believe we do open for public comment on these matters, so you'll have to remind me if we proceed with in favor or opposition first.
No, not with public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to address this particular item, we'd be happy to hear that now.
Public comment is reserved for, on just in general, would be at the city council.
Meeting, that's the third Thursday,
Yes.
and you would, is it 24 hours or 48 hours is required for sign-up? 24 hours. So Thursdays, the third Thursday at 5,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Yes.
And you would need to come to City Hall and sign up 24 hours in advance to speak to council at that stage.
Okay. Article C, what's going on there? Have some great, speak to y'all.
Okay. Sir, can I ask your name?
Matt Holmes, I live at 304 South.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there is no further comment, then we will move to item B, which is TR 24-03. The applicant TRSM 206 LLC requests a zoning amendment for property located at 306 South Main Street.
We didn't have to take any action on that?
No,
Oh.
that'll be the end.
We take action on that.
Oh, we do?
The previous, yes.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't even think. We
Okay.
were just moving on.
Okay, sorry about that. So let's back up. We're all volunteers here. So we'll go back to item A. Do we have a recommendation for approval to move forward? Our motion to approve as presented by the applicant of Deep River South Development.
With conditions?
Conditions.
With
yes.
conditions.
I make a motion to approve with conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I do, again, volunteer
Mhm.
here. Why are we not talking about D along with A?
It's a separate action that we have to take.
Okay, it just
Yeah.
seems like it would be logical to talk about it.
It does seem logical. You're exactly right. And this, it gets hard to explain, but The final development plan is the end of the zoning process. And the preliminary plat is the beginning of the subdivision process. And so we cannot consider the preliminary plat to begin the subdivision process until we approve the final development plan to end the zoning process.
I knew that, I just wanted to hear you
Yeah.
say that.
You just wanted, I was sitting there thinking, if I could say this 10 times fast, it would be an amazing feat. So I get as confused about it as you do, but that's how that standard is done, so.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Now we'll move on to B, TR 2403RZ, the applicant TRSM 206 LLC requests a zoning amendment for property located at 306 South Main Street from R10 to C2. The requested use is for a gift shop. So,
That is exactly right. So we've got the applicant requests rezoning for 306 South Main Street.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm not good at this part.
Okay, the picture on the screen here is the property survey. This is an aerial view of the property. The surrounding zoning. The Greenville County future land use map, and it has this property in the neighborhood business district. This is the Travelers Rest.
I was just going to say, just so everybody knows where this is, because you'll know where it is, it's right across from Sushi Yama, directly across the street from right there. So just to clarify that.
I think we have a picture of Sushiyama coming up.
Okay.
This is the Travelers Rest future land use map, and it has this property as commercial or mixed use. The planning director has waived the neighborhood meeting for this property due to the size of the property. And then this picture shows that the signs were posted at the property for the zoning hearing. This is a picture of the project site. This is east of the property, north of the property, south of the property,
There it is.
There she blows.
and west of the property. The review criteria, the Travelers Rest zoning ordinance does not contain any specified criteria that must be considered by the Planning Commission when reviewing requests for rezoning. However, the following criteria are typical of review criteria used by other jurisdictions. Consistency with the comprehensive plan, or if conditions have changed since the comprehensive plan was adopted, consistency with the overall intent of the plan, recent development trends, and the general character of the area, suitability of the site's physical or environmental features to support the breadth and intensity of uses that could be developed in the proposed zoning district, compatibility of potential uses permitted in the proposed zoning district with surrounding uses in zoning districts, capacity of public infrastructure and services to sufficiently accommodate all potential uses allowed in the proposed district without compromising public health, safety, or welfare. Based on the above reference criteria, staff provides the following findings. The subject parcel request is in keeping with the comprehensive plan. The existing structure would be used as a retail space, which would be allowed in the C2 zoning designation, but it must meet all appropriate standards related to parking, lighting, and landscaping. Any signage would be reviewed under a separate process. For use compatibility, the proposed site is within the downtown district, which includes commercial uses. For site infrastructure capacity, there appears to be sufficient sewer and water capacity for this request. A public hearing was advertised in the Greenville News on July 11th. Signage was posted on the site by the applicant's representatives before July 15th. The staff, based on its findings, staff recommends approval of this request to zone the subject property to C2 commercial with conditions. One is that the site is subject to all applicable requirements of the City of Travelers Rest zoning ordinance, as well as all other applicable ordinances. And two is that signage requires a separate permit.
Thank you. Any questions further?
I do. What size is required for a meeting? Like, how small can you be?
Well, it was more the location of it and the lack of proximity to being within a neighborhood more than anything. And so it's a requirement that can be waived by the planning director and did not see the need for a neighborhood meeting in this regard due to the size. It's a relatively small size so I don't know that there's a specific size, but to me, was a request of a piece of property that's just adjacent to another C2 property, and fits within the.
Based on that, I mean, as far as parking requirements for a structure that size, as far as, is it adequate? I mean, does it depend on what that business is going to be?
It depends on what the business is going to be for the area, but it will have to match those. There's some allowances within the overlay, the downtown district. In this regard, we will work with the user of the property in the parking requirements because a new building's not being constructed.
In addition, it also adjoins Main Street, which has parking on both sides of it.
That's exactly right. And we will work with the property owner. There's some potential of getting a couple parallel spaces along Main Street that were originally striped off there too. And so
Gotcha.
there could be some possibility for that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's a pretty big chunk of property to put parking
Yeah,
in
it
the
is.
back as
It is.
well.
It's
It
pretty,
is.
pretty long.
Yeah, I don't
So
see parking being.
most of that statement deals with the fact that if in the future, the two properties together as C2 became something else, then they would have to address the parking. But right now, it is basically a residential structure that's going to become used for retail purposes, and
It won't change in size.
it will not change in size.
So there's not, right, so it
That's
can only
right.
be so much.
That's correct.
You touched on part of my question. Well, first of all, I've walked by here many, many times. Is that property currently in use? Is there someone living there? Or
I am not sure if.
They moved
They
out
moved out,
about
yeah.
2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
Related to follow-up to what was asked just a minute ago, it's going to be a gift shop if it becomes a C2 property.
That's correct.
So, does that mean it could become a gas station a year from now?
That's a good question. The answer is no, it could not become a gas station because it's located in the downtown district overlay area, which eliminates the ability for certain uses, and that's specifically one of those uses that would be eliminated.
Pretty long list of uses. It can
There
be.
is. There's a certain number in the downtown district that we've decided these are not going to be uses along Main Street and along the Poinsett corridor. And so as they come back before us, because they fit into that overlay district, if there was a change of use, there's certain uses that would not be allowed there. I don't have an exhaustive list of what it is, but like dry cleaners are not allowed. There's some other ones that aren't
Auto
allowed there.
repair.
Yeah, auto repair.
There's a bunch. It's a
It is,
long
it's a
list.
long list, and then there's some that are very conditional uses as well, that they would have to meet certain conditions in order to do it. For a restaurant, they can't have a drive-through, that kind of thing.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to grant the request for a zoning from R10 to C2 on this particular property.
Motion to approve
With conditions?
With conditions.
with conditions.
They all have conditions.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second?
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. All right. So our next item is TR 2404SD. The applicant, Clear Mountain Properties, requests approval of a preliminary subdivision plan along Hemlock Drive and Tubbs Mountain Road for Hemlock Park. The request provides for 32 lots for attached townhomes and 2 neighborhood streets totaling 925 linear feet. So, do we have a presentation on this request?
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that has come before us before. It had started through the process and went to Greenville County. It had previously received SAC comments and is now coming back as a new request, but abiding by the SAC comments that were provided before. This was put into place Prior to January of this year, and that is important for the developer because there was the riparian buffer that has been applied by Greenville County Code January of 2024. This coming in before the land development, who has the purview over all stormwater riparian buffers, and it's outside of the city's purview, has said that it will review the process based off of the old ordinances because it came in before the ordinance was changed. If they change their mind, that is something that is up to Greenville County. That whole matter is up to Greenville County and their purview. To walk through real quick, here's an aerial view of the site. Not all of the site is going to apply to what we're considering this evening. We are considering only the townhome portion, which will be subdivided and is being considered for subdivision. The next site shows the zoning and the surrounding zoning. The property is zoned RM, surrounded to the south by R7.5, and you then see C2, some RM, and some service that is around and abutting the property as well. The future land use for Greenville County shows the neighborhood business district as the use, and the use that is shown in the Travelers Rest future land use. And I'm going to have to respond to you. What was the future land use? Is that? I'm sorry, it's high density residential because of its zoning being RM. The next picture shows the posting of the property along Hemlock, which is the applicable portion where the subdivision will take place. This is the project site. This is the project looking east. This is the project looking north. This is the project looking south. This is the project looking west. There is a preliminary subdivision data sheet that was provided when it had previously started through the process, and then SAC comments are provided as well. There's several comments that they worked through this process. The next few pages they do show what the future development of the RM portion is. This picture here is not what we are considering this evening. That will be under an application for a site development plan to be reviewed by the planning director and staff at a later date. The next page, this was supposed to be on the March 2024 agenda. It came along at this moment in our agenda. This shows the subdivision to the east side, the townhomes to the west side. The townhomes are not under, or the multifamily is not under consideration tonight. That's what's on the west side. My apologies. The next two pages show comments from land development and discussion of the riparian buffer, just so that you had that information before you. And then there's a revised site plan that satisfied the planning requirements from Travelers Rest, and also some comments on stormwater and riparian buffer from Greenville County themselves. The next page, this is not applicable at this time, as the rendering of the multifamily be reviewed by the planning director. The next page is some preliminary architectural renderings of townhomes. And then the final page is that page is aerial view of what possibly they would look like. The next page, this is actually the first page of the preliminary plat. Again, what we're looking at is the site to the east, but we also wanted to be able to show the west and what is under consideration. You'll notice a change on the west, opening up more open space up there, but that is not under consideration this evening. The next page focuses in on that multifamily side, which will be reviewed later date. And then this is what we're looking at tonight. What you will notice on this page is that you are going to have rear-facing units. that we've worked through with them. There's parking that is allocated within the development in the garage and in the driveways, but there's also additional parking along the streets. The blue areas represent the opportunities to provide some portion of the stormwater, but also to create usable open space. It's one of the requirements we spell out in our townhome portion of ours, and Eric previously worked with the developer to find those areas where we can provide water quality in areas, but they can also serve open space and recreational uses. You turned on the, where am I looking? The conclusions, after looking at this, the staff finds and requests to complies with the zoning requirements and subdivision and infrastructure standards. Therefore, staff recommends approvals with the following conditions. Subdivision must comply with all Travelers Rest zoning ordinances requirements during the development process. Subdivision must substantially comply with all Subdivision Advisory Committee SAC comments and conditions for subdivision application PP 2024-017, which is its Greenville County number that was applied to it, and all signage requires a separate review and permit per TRZO Section 611. That's a lot of information really quick.
It is. So I do have a question. And
Yes.
So typically on that Tubbs Mountain Extension side, where the creek comes through, when we have hard rain, it floods.
Mhm.
It's very typical for public safety to have to go out there and put barriers up. Will this development help improve any of that?
The answer is it will not cause any further flooding. The standard that they're held to is the release of water has to be at or less than what is currently leaving the site, and they have to provide water quality as well as the peak attenuation.
Is there any speculation that just from the movement and development and excavation of that area, that it might offer some improvement to an existing situation?
There's always the possibility that it would. It could only improve, it could not deteriorate. And the specific modeling where they will have to provide downstream modeling will be the point at which there's a crossing at Tubbs Mountain Road. That's where it'll have to be measured and make sure as it leaves the site.
Oh,
Yes.
First, this is a request for approval for preliminary.
For preliminary plat.
Right.
Right.
So secondly, because, as we all know, if we live in Travelers Rest, that intersection is one of the biggest, busiest intersections in the city.
It is.
And it's under construction, or at least under the premise of being stoplights and everything being done right
Yes.
now. We have been for a while, and I guess my concern is, are we getting ahead of ourselves with another subdivision before all those other infrastructure things are put into place?
So that infrastructure we're about to sign the contracts to begin that effort, but we're looking at probably a 2-year process down the road.
Of which part? 2 years of?
For the
Poinsett.
DOT or the?
Poinsett
Yes.
corridor.
SCDO, yes.
It will take that length of time to do that. The main access point for the subdivision we're considering is via Hemlock Drive up to.
And not Tubbs Mountain Extension?
And not Tubbs Mountain. That is
That's good to know.
That will come along.
Or 276,
So.
further
and-
down North Poinsett.
Yeah.
That comes in, Hemlock comes in there at the Masonic Lodge?
Yes.
Yeah, beside the
Lot.
Masonic Lodge.
Isn't the the characteristic of that area right now mostly single-family homes?
The answer to that is that on that side of the creek, it meets the adjacent uses and standards, and with its zoning especially. It matches up exactly to Magnolia Cottages which was developed before and is adjacent to those. The rear is adjacent to R 7.5, but it is not beside. So when we usually consider the character, it's usually inside of a block. So where they face, does this match what this is? But they are looking backwards to each other this way.
There was just another townhome project just completed right there. And I guess they just started renting 2 weeks ago, leasing 2 weeks or 3 weeks
That's
ago.
Magnolia Cottages.
That's right,
correct,
that's
yeah.
right, yeah.
There are single-family homes in
Yeah,
there.
around there, yeah, single
Yes.
family and townhome.
And that is part of Magnolia Cottage too.
Yeah, it is. It's
they-
all sort of
They
part
have
of the
some
same-
single-family
Yes.
residences in there as well.
Specifically, the ones that'll touch this property are the single-family.
Both
Oh.
touch this property, they're across the street.
I know to the south of this property is all single-family.
It is.
And I don't know, might be one of the only natives here, I don't know, but past history on that, even I think where Magnolia Cottages was a mobile home park
Right.
25 years ago. And although, I don't know how many mobile homes are in that park now, on Tubbs-Zone Extension, maybe a dozen, 15.
If that.
Looks like
25 years ago, it was full.
Yeah.
So it has been, I don't know if it was zoned multifamily, but it was a lot of people in there at one point in time.
The density in this area, and that was a question that Diane and I were talking about earlier, and I looked up. It's important to remember RM allows for 20 units per acre. The request on this one is for 3 units per acre.
And a unit being a townhome
Yep.
or a block of townhomes.
Nope, one townhome.
And so just to clear
Now, the
my,
request in the future on the multifamily piece is going to be 16 units per acre, which is still below the 20, but the townhome units are 3 units per acre.
How many acres is just the townhome side portion?
3?
and to clear my mind, the entry and exit is going to, for the townhome section, is going to be Hemlock up to Poinsett?
That's correct.
Is that going to be widened or
No, that,
as it is?
there was a traffic impact study that was performed, which provides all necessary improvements that need to incur.
And that's SCDOT property.
That is
Right,
SCDOT
so-
road.
Yeah,
Hemlock is?
It is.
Okay.
and so is North Poinsett.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's,
All right. Any other discussion here?
So, and I'm not sure if this applies to what we're talking about tonight, but on the SAC committee comments,
Mhm.
the railroad capacity is limited in this area. That was a comment on this page.
That's correct.
Is that still applicable? or has
They're,
that been
they're responsible for getting,
getting that?
yes. It cannot be constructed. REWA would not approve any sewer line improvements. That'll be reviewed by ACOG, it'll be reviewed by Metro, and it will be reviewed by REWA before they give them a permit to construct.
so this is for the approval for all of, for them to move ahead, to keep trying to jump through the hoops,
Yes.
basically.
Yes, all of those that appear at the SAC meeting and make those requests, they have to meet all of those conditions that are applied there to get a permit from the appropriate authorities to get this constructed.
And those blessings you're notified of, or the permits are given, you're notified, or they have to come to you as you have to see them to make sure it's,
No, because it is not under our authority, it's under Metro's authority. Used to be under our authority when we were a sewer district,
Right.
but we are no longer
longer.
a sewer district.
The other one was by County Land Development. As new public roadways are being proposed, a road review by the city is required. Since these roads will be maintained by the city, the county does not review the roadway stormwater conveyance systems for proper capacity. Is that applicable to this section here?
We review the roads as we take, where there are public roads we would take. We review those. The stormwater conveyance of these roads will be considered by land development and the grading and erosion control plans before they issue a permit.
All right, it just said the responsibility of the city, so I was just making sure that we,
That means that ultimately, whatever storm drain pipes are put into a publicly owned road that we own and we have to maintain. Me and Philip take a look at those things to make sure that they're in proper working order for us to take them.
Anything you'd like to add? I'm guessing you're with this group.
Yes, ma'am. So just to introduce myself, my name is Stormy Ellenberg. Work with Clear Mountain Properties, the developer of the site. We are a local real estate investment and development firm. We're actually based out of Greenville. I'm also a local native. I've been in the upstate my entire life. Went to Wade Hampton High School, USC Upstate, so I'm not just some out-of-towner coming in, and do care about what happens in Travelers Rest. Clear Mountain Properties has owned the property for about 2 to 4 years, just based on which parcel we've assembled. It took about 2 to 3 years to assemble the full 10.5 acres. And we have been working very closely with the City of Travelers Rest over the past 2 to 3 years to get to the site plan that is in front of you tonight. As we've all noted, we also went before Greenville County Subdivision Advisory Committee and actually a couple of times, but we finished our readings in February, and we continue to stay. The stormwater is a very sensitive topic for us as well as it is for them. So we've been working very closely with Seaman Whiteside and the county to make sure we're incorporating adequate swales and even potentially some underground detention to help support it. And our understanding is, as Jay mentioned, it cannot get worse than what it is right now. It can only get better, and that is our goal. We also held a community meeting in March where we heard from nearby residents. We did have people show, majority of them were residents along Poplar Drive that were concerned about the traffic. When we were in the planning phase of the project, we did engage a traffic study, which indicated that all traffic movements are expected to operate at the current service level or better, and no mitigation was recommended by the traffic engineer. Additionally, there were concerns raised regarding utilizing Poplar Street to get from east to west. Based on the way that we've configured this site, we do not think people will do that. I think it'd be a lot easier to take points at Highway. And that's also supported in the traffic report that we received. Just overall, we are very excited to push this project forward. As I mentioned, we started assembling this in 2020. It's been a long time coming. And appreciate you all being here tonight to listen. As you noted before, I know you're volunteers, and after 5 o'clock, we're eating into your family time, so just appreciate you listening to us tonight. Thank you.
can I ask you a couple questions?
Yes.
Maybe just one.
Okay.
And I asked Jay earlier about green space, and I think Jay answered that the minimum requirement has been met. Is there any possible expansion of green space that might?
Not on the side that we are considering tonight, just in order for the project to be viable for us. This is basically the majority that we can provide. We did push really hard for the current configuration of the site plan, because at one point we thought we were going to have to provide alleys, like rear-loaded alleys behind the townhomes, which would have eaten into the green space. So what we've provided that's in front of you, we feel like actually provides more connectivity and green space, especially for the residents. They can actually walk out their front doors to open green space and parks and sidewalks that we think will contribute to a better quality of life.
So what's the type of buffer on the creekside area? Is there a plan? Is it tree planting, shrubs? Is it, you got a specific?
Are you talking about the riparian buffer? We cannot disturb the actual riparian buffer that is there.
So it's a 35-foot buffer.
Okay.
Where they're located that cannot be disturbed.
Okay.
However, I will note, we have been in conversations with the City of Travelers Rest about a multi-use path essentially a bike path that we would, that the county has approved for us to utilize a portion of the buffer for.
And how would that be routed?
It's on the site layout.
It's
Yeah.
hard to see.
It routes basically at the uppermost portion of the 35-foot buffer
Okay.
and stays parallel to the creek, basically within that buffer. If you read through the buffer and riparian buffers, paths are one of the things that are allowed to go through there. Other things would be like sewers allowed to go through riparian buffers because that's where sewer usually runs and things like that are allowed.
And so this path would be contained within the subdivision
Yes.
out to a road?
Yes, there is potential that it may swing out a little bit. That would require an SCDOT encroachment permit from us that our civil engineer is working on, but currently we're expecting for it to remain within the boundaries. And when I say swing out, it's just a little bit, just so it's a little bit easier for our cyclists.
Would
That
was
be
your-
included in, at the time of the development? Would this be later on down the road?
We're still in conversations with City of Travelers
We are going to have
Rest
to
about it.
coordinate
Yeah.
the placement and an appropriate easement and.
Yeah, who would maintain it? Would it be the HOA or
great.
the city?
That's the things that we need.
Partnership.
We need to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
It's a when public and private start partnering together, the liabilities, maintenance, ownership, and those things need to be resolved as we move forward, which is feasible. We would shoot to have those things resolved by the time we get to final plat. That way, those things would, if we need to have an easement, it would be applied on the final plat and those sorts of things.
If these townhomes would have lawn care included within their HOA, is that, did I
Yes,
read that?
yes, they will be governed by HOA documents. Yeah,
whatever- whatever
CCNRs
happens.
that will be recorded. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the application of preliminary subdivision plan along Hemlock Drive and Tums Mountain Road for Hemlock Park with conditions.
Make a motion to approve?
Motion, do we have a second? Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Okay, now, hold on. Here we go. We are at TR 24-05 SD. The applicant, Deep River South Development, requests approval of a preliminary subdivision plan for the villas at North Valley. The request provides for 87 lots for detached homes and 3 neighborhood streets totaling 2,595 linear feet. This item is pending approval of item A, which we did approve.
Approved, yes.
So, anything further you want to add for that, Jay?
I have the same information, if you run all the way through that, and I can run through it if you would like me to. But if everybody's fine, we can jump forward to the preliminary plat. Located, just a second. Right here. Let's go back one. And so what has occurred on this is just like the prior consideration. It was required to go through the SAC. And so these are SAC comments, and specifically the City of Travelers Rest comments that they have responded to. And so if you go to the next page, their preliminary plat has responded to all SAC comments that were applied to the project. I had comments that related to the right-of-way, making sure that the required tree planting strip and the sidewalks would fit within the right-of-ways, and that we had the appropriate radiuses upon the cul-de-sacs. The cul-de-sacs actually exceed what Greenville County would use for a cul-de-sac radius. Reason being, it really helps fire apparatus to make it easier motion around those. Always the primary concern. Always noted in this, as has been noted through the process, is there are two accesses into it, but only one is for people to use. The other one is for emergency access only. It can be seen above the northwesternmost cul-de-sac connecting back to Bowers Road, so that there's a secondary access if emergency vehicles are blocked at the entrance. And then we can move along to the recommendations on this one. So the subdivision, we recommend approval with the following conditions. Subdivisions must comply with all Travelers Rest zoning ordinance requirements during the development process. Subdivision must substantially comply with all subdivision advisory comments and conditions for subdivision application PP 2024-111, which again is the Greenville County application. And all signage requires a separate review and permit per TRZO Section 611.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
So the emergency access, so to speak, will be gated and,
They're typically gated, and then they provide a Knox box to it so that the emergency can make it. If you gave a wearing surface and didn't gate it, people would use it.
Would use it, yes.
yeah.
Any other questions? And with this development, they'll be coming back time for approval process along the way as this further develops?
No, this would, this
to
kicks them,
finalize
the
it?
preliminary plat kicks them into a position where they can have a pre-design meeting with land development. And any work that they've done engineering-wise is pretty much at risk up to this point. I don't know if they've done any or not. But once they submit, it's probably about a 60-day process getting through the review and permitting process, unless you figured out a way. Yeah, again, it's kind of like 90 days or something like that. It's a tedious little process that they go through, and that process must go through before you see anything begin on the site and everything else. They will have to get the appropriate permits for encroachments. They'll have to get the appropriate permits for sewer, for water, and all those things as well.
And the whole wetland, bunched airhead, and all that thing's been taken care of.
All of that's going to be in an easement.
Right, that's
And,
that's what I'm understanding.
well, that's
was.
correct.
Yeah.
And so it's protected, it will remain protected. And quite honestly, the city is going to maintain as much ability to provide that as a natural resource.
Right.
And in the future, boardwalks, that sort of thing through there.
I will say from the very get-go, the presentation that you guys did, y'all were very proactive in making sure a lot of that stuff was addressed before you ever brought it before us on day one, which, commend you for doing that, so you guys have probably been more proactive than a lot of people we see are. So, thanks for doing that.
All right.
I just have one further question to kind of piggyback on the last there. And this may be just the language of the memo here, but it says a boardwalk may be provided as a connection to open space. I thought from last meetings it was going to be provided. Is that a little more of a maybe kind of a thing, or?
Well, the connections to it are going to be made, but they're kind of contingent upon the open space being usable. In other words, so the opportunity will be the connection to what we will need to find funding for to put boardwalks through the natural area.
Who would make that final decision or not, or?
Well, what we would do is we'll end up looking for grants to find the ability to use
It'll be a
that as
public
resource.
area.
To make it a public area,
There you
yes.
So that's on the city.
That would be, yes, but it won't be out of our general funding. It'll be something we look for, the ability to provide out of grants and that sort of thing, which are available to us.
Initial build as well as maintain.
That's correct, yes.
Anything further? At this point, would entertain a motion to approve the request from Deep River South Development of a preliminary subdivision plan for the villas at North Valley, as noted on our agenda.
Motion to approve with conditions?
Second?
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by the right hand. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. I will say, Jay had explained to me that this could have required 2 meetings, but having the first part at the beginning of the agenda and then going through that, we were able to do this in 1 meeting and don't have to come back and address it again.
And I said this to council, and I'll say this to you again. As we move forward in doing that, at a certain point, we've, in my opinion, kind of beat it to death. Like, we've worked it out. And then at that point, we don't need to extend it out. So we wanted to shorten the process down. If we get to a point and we start looking at it, and we need to lengthen that process back out by a month, if we see things moving forward, then please let me know. And we'll take a look at that and make sure we want to try this. I think it will work to do it that way. And like we went through tonight, you get to see both of them at the same time, knowing that both of those drawings are exactly the same. So thanks for letting us do that way. And again, if down the road it's like, man, this isn't working, please let me know.
If nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you all for
Thank you,
coming.
guys.